Welcome to the Betting Above the Rim podcast. Today's day, January 8th, episode 112. Let's get started with our tip-off topics. And leading off in the NBA, as reported by Shams Charania earlier today, Paolo Banchero looks like he's ready to return to the Orlando Magic. Orlando has a back-to-back games with Minnesota on Thursday and Friday versus Milwaukee. Paolo Banchero will return to one of those two games. And it sets up really an interesting play. We'll kind of get into my thoughts of Coach of the Year next segment in our award tour, but it kind of lines up what's going on. Paolo Banchero coming back to a team that's really, folks, you can't say enough about this team and what they have done. The Orlando Magic sitting at 22-16 right now, tied for fourth place in the Eastern Conference with the Milwaukee Bucks. And if you look at Paolo Banchero, who really got off to a fantastic start at the beginning of the year, scoring at 29 points per game, 8.8 rebounds, 5.6 assists, shooting nearly 50% from the floor and 34.4% from three. Simply put, if you really think about those stats of what Paolo has done over the course of the career, the 29 points would be a career high. The 49.5% would be a career high. The 34.4% from the three-point line would be a career high. The 8.8 assists rebounds would be a career high, and the 5.6 assists, would be a career high, along with his blocks being a career high. So really, Paolo Banchero had really taken that next step. We saw the evolution of Paolo leading into the playoffs last year for Orlando, and this is good news for a Magic team that is without the Wagner brothers, right? Obviously, Franz is out still with the same oblique injury that Paolo had, and Mo is out for the rest of the year with a knee injury. This is welcome news for an Orlando Magic team under Jamal Mosley. He's done a great job. They are going to probably run away with the Southeast Division with the fact that Atlanta, I still think is up and down, even though they got a big win with Trae Young half-court buzzer beater last night. And the Miami Heat, with the whole Jimmy Butler thing, are in a state of flux. Good news for the Orlando Magic and the NBA with Paolo Banchero coming back. While Paolo Banchero is coming back, Chris Middleton is heading to the bench. Chris Middleton, who I think was not supposed to play tonight, Chris Haynes reported that he is going to play tonight versus San Antonio, will come off the bench for the Milwaukee Bucks. And if you think about Milwaukee, right, this is a team that is in a win-now mode. This is a team that I thought when it came to the NBA draft should have addressed their need and get a guy that could help them win right now. And he did not do so, really trying to take, I hate to say it, a little bit of a project in Johnson, which has not really turned out for them as well. He's only played in 5 games. Remember, they could have taken a guy like a Dalton Connect to address their three-point shooting issues, and it did not do so. But when you get back to talking about Chris Middleton, this is a guy that scored 12.7 points per game. And really, folks, this is a guy that has had injury concerns, right? Chris Middleton only played 55 games last year. Chris Middleton had only played 33 games in 22-23. Chris Middleton has not played more than 75 games since the 18-19 season. So this has been coming. And Chris Middleton that is shooting a 44.7% from the floor, which is down from 49.3 last year. He is shooting better from three, better from the foul line, but still only playing 23.4 minutes per game. Folks, this is the problem with Milwaukee. He's a great scorer, but I don't know what he brings to the table, and it made me wonder why he got that 3-year, over $100 million contract for Milwaukee. The team is sitting at 18-16, wildly inconsistent, and now they go to a starting lineup with Andre Jackson. That's probably more of a defensive lineup. Maybe Chris Middleton, Gary Trent kind of elevate that second unit with Bobby Portis. I think this is a team that's stuck in nowhere, and you wonder where Brook Lopez will go. He could be a free agent after this year, and you wonder if this is the window closing or being officially closed for business for the Milwaukee Bucks. While someone's going to the bench, someone just showed up, and that's Zion Williamson in a 104-97 loss to the Timberwolves last night in a game that was desperately needed by Minnesota, covering, I do believe it was a 4.5-point spread. But the story is Zion, right? Zion comes back. Zion plays 28 minutes, gets you 22 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, 1 block, and a +8 in 28 minutes. Wow, what a performance on the comeback for Zion. But how much are we going to see of Zion? And the bigger question is, how much are we going to see Zion in uniform for New Orleans? A Zion Williamson that's only played 7 games this year. A Zion Williamson that, although played 70 games last year, only played 29 in 22-23, 61 in 2021, and 24 in 19-20. Simply put, this guy can't stay healthy. And if you are New Orleans, I think you're getting him back with about a month to go for the trade deadline. You hope this guy plays well, and then you can figure out what you're going to do. I've said it multiple times. B.I. or Zion, one of them's getting moved, folks. One of them's getting traded. They have to trade one of them. So they have to figure out who can catch more value. Brandon Ingram is someone also that has had the injury concerns over the course of his career. So when you look at David Griffin, who I do believe is a general manager, they got to figure out which one gets moved. Is it Zion at his 22.6, 7.7, 5.1? Or is it B.I. with his 22.2, 5.6, 5.2? One of them's got to get moved. They're not dependable. So let's see what happens. But welcome news that Zion is back. We got to watch the situation closely because I do expect major moves by a team that is underachieved. Let's quickly head to college basketball where, oh my Lord, Florida done come and whipped Tennessee's behind last night in a 73-43 blowout. Tennessee, who had a stranglehold on the number 1 ranking, that stranglehold has been released, and it's been released greatly in a loss. Folks, simply put, do you know that Tennessee shot 4 of 29 from the three-point line? Do you know that Tennessee shot 29 out of 56 shots from 3? Folks, this is the problem with college basketball and the NBA in high school. It's the dependence on the three-point line. When you can't knock down threes and you don't get to the 10, you're going to give yourself a problem. That's a major blowout. That's a big win for Florida, a team that now I may look at for national title implications. Speaking of national title implications, Ashley Watkins, the star forward for South Carolina, who had some legal problems before the year, out for the year with an ACL tear. This has not moved the market, but it should change things. South Carolina's got a loaded schedule. You have to deal with the SEC. Dawn Staley's got a work cut out for her. This was their best rebounder. This was their best shot blocker and their best defender. Big news out of women's college basketball. As Ashley Watkins is hurt, we'll also see when Paige Beckers comes back from her injury. Remember, she is going to be out for a week or 2. The market hasn't moved. I think it's only about a 20 to 30 cent movement in the market between South Carolina now with the injury to Watkins. Remember, they're sitting at about plus 280, and then USC and UConn at 4.5 to 1 for the chances to win the national championship. When we come back from the Betting Above the Rim podcast, we'll get into our award tour. We'll jump back. We'll look at the Rookie of the Year race. We'll look at the Coach of the Year race. And I'll give you 2 teams locally that I think to go under their win total. This is the Betting Above the Rim podcast. We'll be back with an award tour, and we'll look at some futures right after this commercial break. Welcome back to the Betting Above the Rim podcast. And let's get into our award tour as we look into future markets. We're going to stick today in the NBA, and we're going to lead off with the NBA Rookie of the Year race. Right now, Zach Edey is in the lead at plus 150. Alex Sarr is at 2.5 to 1. Yves Missi is at 6 to 1. Jalen Wells, Zach Edey's teammate, 7.5 to 1. And then once you get the double digits, Castle 12 to 1, Risa Shea 30 to 1, Connect 40 to 1, along with Tristan Da Silva, Bob Carrington at 75 to 1, and Ryan Dunn at 100 to 1. So when you look at this, first things first, folks, remember you have to play 65 games in order to be eligible to win Rookie of the Year. Zach Edey has played in 23 games. Right? 23 games. They've played 37. So right then and there, folks, there's one thing to look at right off the bat is how many more games can Zach Edey lose or miss to not qualify for Rookie of the Year. So that's where it gets interesting is if you don't want to take Zach Edey at plus 150, where are you going to look as we can bring back the board here? Alex Sarr at 2.5 to 1. That's going to be intriguing. I'll tell you why in a second. Yves Missi at 6 to 1. I wouldn't go there because if I'm New Orleans, I think I want to try and get a center, right? Jalen Wells. Well, there's talk about improving the perimeter play of Memphis. Castle at 12 to 1. Well, there's talk about maybe trying to get another guard. There's talk about Darren Fox maybe going to San Antonio to play with Chris Paul. So then you can't look at Castle. Risa Shea, they can't move him because they got Jalen Johnson this whole time. So you keep going down the line, sure, finding problems. But I'm going to take a look at Alex Sarr at 2.5 to 1. Simply put, folks, when you really think about Alex Sarr, right, the team is going nowhere. Right? They have the worst record in the NBA to Washington Wizards, right? And Alex Sarr, so far, listen, the stats have not been outstanding for Sarr. 11.7 points per game, 6.7 rebounds per game. Last 9 games, though, up to 14-7. Valanciunas is going to get moved, right? Maybe they try and move Kuzma. So now there's more opportunities there. So because of what is going on in Washington in regard to getting traded, right? The fact that I don't know if Zach Edey's going to make it to 65 games, and the fact of all the other guys behind Alex Sarr right now, 2.5 to 1 is going to be my play for NBA Rookie of the Year. Let's go to the Coach of the Year odds. Kenny Atkinson running away with it at minus 270. Jamal Mosley 9 to 1. Taylor Jenkins 10 to 1. Emil Doka 15 to 1. Tyronn Lue 17 to 1. We'll talk about the Clippers in a little bit because they Kawhi done it again. We'll get to that later. JB Bickerstaff, 30 to 1. What a job JP has done. I got to be honest with you. Dagenham, 25 to 1. Thibodeau, 150 to 1, so on and so forth. To me, folks, it's got to be Jamal Mosley. Now, last time we talked about this several weeks ago, I think Matt reminded me, I think Jamal Mosley was at 10 to 1. He's only going down to 9 to 1. Think about the injuries he's dealt with. He's just getting Banchero back, right? He lost the Wagner brothers, right? He's not going to get Mo back for the rest of the year. Jamal Mosley is going to win this, in my opinion. And here's the other reason why. While they have the best record in the NBA, Cleveland's got the 4th hardest strength of schedule left to go the rest of the way. They're going to lose ground. And who's going to gain ground is Orlando. So I think you look at Jamal Mosley at 9 to 1 to be Coach of the Year. So to segue to that, one of the over-unders I like now is now Orlando at 47.5 wins this year to go over their mark. When you take a look at the Orlando Magic and you pull up the NBA standings, Orlando's got 22 wins. That means they got to get you 25 more wins and 44 games. Folks, they have the second easiest schedule left the rest of the way at the NBA. They're going to have to play some tough teams, but they got an easy schedule down the stretch, including 3 games versus the Washington Wizards. It ties in. Jamal Mosley 9-1 to win Coach of the Year. Orlando over 47.5 wins. Now to the unders. And I'm keeping it in the tri-state area. Brooklyn 22.5 wins. Wait, Coach, they got 13 wins already. They get 9 more. They get 10 more to hit. Folks, they've already moved Schroeder. I think they're going to try and move D'Lo again. They moved Finney-Smith. They're trying to move Cam Johnson. I wouldn't be surprised if they try and move Cam Thomas. This team is going to tank. They could have 4 first-round picks. The rebuild is on in Brooklyn, and I fully expect a tank. Now to the other team, and you're like, wait, what? I'm going under 53.5 for the Knicks. Folks, the Knicks got themselves a problem. We were going to talk about this in the opening segment, but the stuff that came out today I felt was more important. Folks, you have to think about this. They now have issues with too many guys playing big minutes. If you think about this, right? If you think about their starters, they don't have a bench. Mitchell Robinson, will he come back? And they have the hardest schedule left in the NBA. 45 games left, 24 wins. I do not see the Knicks getting to 54 wins. That is a big climb. The Knicks will come back to the pack. They'll get about 48 to 52 wins. Knicks win total under 53.5. It has nothing to do with what's going on in New York in regards to how much I love this team or what they do in the playoffs. I just get concerned about injury and the lack of bench and the fact of Mitchell Robinson, what he brings to the table. Coming up next, we'll go to our scouting report. We'll look at some games in the NBA, including a big one between the Rockets and the Grizzlies, Thunder and Knicks round 2, Bucks at the Magic, and we'll get a little college basketball. We'll come back with our scouting report as we preview games coming up this weekend on the Betting Above the Rim podcast. Welcome back to the Betting Above the Rim podcast. So let's get into our scouting report as we preview some of the top games in the NBA and college basketball for the rest of the week. And let's start off with a big matchup of 2 up-and-coming teams as Jalen Green and the Houston Rockets head to Memphis to take on Ja Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies. And when you think about this matchup, folks, you have to think about the fact of 2 teams that played pretty well, and you have a Houston Rockets team that had a big win over the Grizzlies earlier this year, 128-108. Houston Rockets have dropped 3 of the last 5. Same thing for the Memphis Grizzlies. So when you really think about this matchup, it's really about the fact of where this game is being played. This game is not going to be no back-to-backs right here, folks. Both teams are going to have equal amount of rest. So to me, I'm just going to go with Memphis. I think when you look at Memphis as a team as being maybe the biggest threat in the Western Conference to Oklahoma City, you could say the other one being Houston, but in fact with Houston being 24-12 and Memphis 24-13. I do like the Grizzlies minus a point at home. I think this is a team at home that's played relatively well, going 15-4. I know Houston has been 11-6. But give me the Memphis Grizzlies minus a point in that big matchup versus Houston. Now to the rematch between the Knicks and the Thunder. Obviously, last game that these guys played, the Knicks were playing really well, and then it was a 37-19 fourth quarter run for Oklahoma City. Folks, if you think about this matchup, I'm going to go back to what I said last week, if Matt told me right, if I remember right, and that is the under. The game, I think, just went over. It was a 224, and that was because of a big fourth quarter. I think the Knicks try to play as a half-court game. I think the Knicks will have to rely on their defense, and I think that's the best way to play this versus the Oklahoma City Thunder team that's just as strong defensively. Remember, the Knicks are about 223 and a half, or 224, and then probably 223 and a half for the over-unders average for the Thunder. I'm looking at this game to go under 224. Next matchup, Bucks Orlando. They're going to get Banchero back. I just can't trust this Milwaukee Bucks team here. So I'm going to go with the Orlando Magic minus the points. This team has been really great defensively, and their style of play that Jamal Mosley has brought in has been something that's brought a real sense of pride for the Orlando Magic. This is a fright. Remember, the Thunder, Knicks, and the Bucks Magic games are both on Friday night. I think they're both 7:30 p.m. tip-offs, if I'm not mistaken. So that should be a really good matchup. Give me the Orlando Magic minus the points. Lastly, in college basketball, a big one after a 30-point blowout is here comes Florida down to Arkansas, and a team in John Calipari that I don't want to say flying under the radar, but they just haven't really put it all together. They have a good win. I think it was versus, I do believe it was Michigan. But you're going to be looking at a game here where I think you could have Florida as a very short favorite. You know my motto, right? Unranked team at home as a short dog. You take them on the money line. If this line is less than 4.5, 5.5, go ahead and take Arkansas on the money line to spring an upset. Speaking of upset, I got to get to this, folks. Did you see what Chris Haynes just reported in the last couple hours? That Kawhi Leonard has decided that he needs to step away from his team to be with his family, who are forced to evacuate due to the LA area wildfires. I don't want to put any disrespect on this in regards to wanting to take care of your family. But this is enough with this guy. The guy came back from knee injury, could have came back earlier, played 2 games, played like hot trash, scored 10 points a game, and now he wants to turn around and say he wants to be with the family? Well, what about J.J. Redick who had to move his family out? What about the Rams that are going to be in the playoffs? What about the Chargers that are going to be in the playoffs? What about the LA Kings that are in the middle of the season? You don't see any of those guys from those teams or coaches leaving their team right now to take care of the family to be with the Wildfires. Not trying to be disrespectful, but damn it, I've had enough of Kawhi. This has been your Betting Above the Rim podcast for January 8th. For all things sports gambling, download that Sports Grid app, pregame, in-game, postgame, props, predictions, and more from the very best in the sports gambling industry. For my producer, Matty George, and Vinny, who always does a great job with the graphics, thank you for listening, folks, and always remember, it's smarter to be on Sports Grid. Good night.